Yeah, Neil Ratner Rat Doc here with a story. So, in honor of musician, singer-songwriter, and producer Peter Gabriel's 69th birthday this past week, I thought I would tell you a few things about Peter you might not know. But as usual, a little background first. All right, so Peter's father's family was political, with Peter's great-great-great-uncle serving as the Lord Mayor of London from 1866 to 1877. Might have had something to do with Peter's political and humanitarian leanings later on. Okay, now, while his mother, Edith Irene, came from a musical family and taught Peter to play the piano at a very young age. Now, although he knew how to play the piano, believe it or not, Gabriel was a drummer in his first rock bands. I can certainly relate to that. And according to Genesis bandmate Mike Rutherford, Pete was, and still is, I think, a frustrated drummer. Now, Genesis was formed in 1967 when Gabriel got his friends from the Charterhouse School, Tony Banks, Anthony Phillips, Mike Rutherford, and drummer Chris Stewart, to join him in a band which was kind of being managed by another Charterhouse alumni, Jonathan King. And it was Jonathan King who suggested the name Genesis to sort of indicate the beginning. And that's what it was, the beginning. Okay. Now, in the early days of the band, Genesis traveled with a cheap PA system which sucked. And that frustrated Gabriel, since he was the original lead singer, because no one could understand what he was singing. So as a result, he decided to come up with a unique way of displaying his personality. Now, according to Steve Hackett, the first costume he remembered Gabriel wearing was the dress-wearing fox-headed character immortalized on the cover of Foxtrot. Now, the funny thing was, the band had no idea Peter was going to do this, and at first got really bummed out, thinking it would ruin the show. But quite the opposite, the fans loved it, which encouraged Gabriel to come up with other interesting stage personalities to illustrate the band's musical ideas. And I'm sure you remember quite a few of them if you were a fan of Genesis. All right, now when Gabriel left the band in the summer of '75, fans were stunned and wondered what would happen to both Genesis and Gabriel. Well, we know Phil Collins took over the singing. Genesis did just fine, although a lot of people think the original Genesis was really the prog band that they knew. And Gabriel, he went on to a great solo career, humanitarian work. He created the WOMAD Festival. I mean, Peter has done a lot of great things. I've gotten to meet him a couple of times when I was with Circus Talents, my company. We did something very small for them at the very beginning. And then later on, when I was out of the business, I got to go to a Gabriel concert and I got to see him backstage and talk to him and stuff like that. Okay, but I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Peter's relationship with Nelson Mandela. Now, Gabriel's song Biko, about the anti-apartheid reformer Stephen Biko, killed by the South African police, was very influential. And Stephen Van Zant's tune, Sun City, was the other really influential song. And Van Zant was very influenced by Gabriel to write the song Sun City. And the song Sun City and the song Biko helped unite the Western world against apartheid. And eventually got freedom for Nelson Mandela and changed the country of South Africa. Now, Gabriel worked on a project with Virgin founder Richard Branson called The Elders. A group, this was in the early 2000s, I think, a group whose strength was not based on economic, political, or military power, but on integrity and respect they had earned by the way they had lived their lives. Now, they both agreed that there was only one person whose extraordinary life and leadership had won respect all around the world, and without whom they didn't think this project could take off. And who was that one person? Nelson Mandela. Now, I also had the incredible honor of meeting and spending time with Nelson Mandela. And unbelievably, Mandela helped me finance a charity I started in Africa. So I think today I want to read you a little bit from my book, Rock Doc, wrong way, Rock Doc, available on Amazon in all formats, available from my website, www.neilratnerrockdoc.com. If you buy the book from my website, I'll autograph it for you. But I want to read about when I first met Mandela, and then I'll tell you what Peter thought of Mandela. Okay, so I was at a show with Michael Jackson. Mandela was the president, and we were waiting now in the dressing room for Mandela and his entourage to come. Okay, so after the show, as we waited for the president to arrive, a palpable air of excitement filled Michael's dressing room. Mandela's personal assistant, Zelda LaGrange, a heavy-set, stern-looking white woman, entered the room first, clearing a path. Mandela followed with two burly South African security people trailing close behind. Tall and slender, Madiba, as he was affectionately known, was dressed in a loose, long-sleeve, button-down shirt in a bright African pattern. A few other dignitaries and family members rounded out the entourage. Jerry and Zarella, he was a friend of Michael's who traveled with us, stepped forward and warmly embraced the president. I joined the receiving line of about 10 people, including Michael's manager, the tour promoter, and key members of Michael's production team. The room hushed as Jerry led the South African leader to the far end of the line. Mandela spent a minute or two with each individual, shaking hands and exchanging a few words. Waiting, I felt as if I were in the presence of someone extraordinary. Of course, this was the president of South Africa, which was special, but there was something else. A peaceful air surrounded Mandela, and his eyes projected deep inner wisdom. But it was his infectious smile that affected me the most. When it was my turn, I introduced myself as Dr. Neil Ratner. President Mandela looked surprised to find a physician in the line. He asked how I liked South Africa, and I told him it wasn't my first time here. He smiled and said I should keep coming back. As he walked away, he looked back toward me. I'll never forget this. Doctor, make sure you take good care of Michael. Man, that was something else, let me tell you. Michael watched from the front of the room as Madiba greeted each of us. When it was his turn, they hugged one another warmly and talked like old friends. Michael beamed as Mandela told him how much he loved the concert. Meanwhile, the photographers were snapping photos continuously, getting as many images as they could of the two icons together. I was soaking in the experience when Michael looked in my direction. He seemed to be motioning for me to come up front. I glanced around to see who was standing next to me, and I heard him call my name. He and Mandela were surrounded by a group that included Jerry and Zarello and Prudence Solomon, Jerry's bride-to-be, Dan and Sala, a close friend of Jerry's and our contact at Sun City, Graça Michelle, Mandela's wife, and two of the president's daughters. Rat, come take a picture with us. I felt honored. It was an incredibly special moment for me. The president and his entourage left the dressing room. I walked over to Michael. Hey, Michael, thanks so much for that opportunity. I told you, Rat. Yeah, but I didn't expect you to call me up front for pictures. All right, so that was when I met Mandela. Back to Peter Gabriel now. Gabriel said about Mandela, Madiba was famous for his good humor, his charm, and his easygoing yet humble way of getting the attention of everyone in the room. I certainly saw that. He enjoyed making mischief, and with a musician's sense of timing, he knew exactly how long to pause when he delivered his deadpan wisecracks. His patience was also extraordinary. There was no one who came near him who didn't dream of having their photograph with him. Even those in my country who had called for his execution as a terrorist many years before. It made me think of one of those fairground novelties where you stick your head through a board to appear alongside some childhood hero. As his legend grew, so there would be more and more expected of him. He never encouraged the myth-making, but he knew his all-encompassing global status could be used for good and was always prepared to trade on it. He always put the service of those in need at the top of his agenda, and he showed the world that we could all slide that dividing line between them and us, with less and less whom we push away as them, and more of those we bring close and call us. Yeah. Peter Gabriel, Nelson Mandela. A great message for today. Happy belated birthday, Peter Gabriel. All right, that's it for today. Let me play my little tune. All right, if you want the book, or if you like my reading, get the audio book. That's available too on Amazon. All right, that's it for today. I'm going to do another story tomorrow on one of my all-time favorite groups, the Doobie Brothers. So please join me. All right, that's it. Holiday weekend here in America. Enjoy yourself if you're off. Enjoy the rest of your weekend wherever you are. Neil Ratner, Rock Doc. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.